What kind of God declares that their kingdom is most near when all signs point towards destruction? That's my question. Hardly the kind of God who fears conflict, who turns away from hard things, or who wishes for all to simply get along, while forces of oppressions and destruction carry on. On this Sunday of hope, what does destruction and conflict have to teach us about who God is and how different they may be than the God of our culture? One who has found their way into many of our churches, I believe. You see, much of the world's worst conflict and periods of loss come to bear in transitional periods. The ending of an era of power brings out the last effort attempts, sometimes the most gruesome, to do everything it can to keep things from changing. As people, groups collectively rise to claim their power, seek their rights, and expect the opportunity to flourish, they face violence, threats, and aggression. They are promised peace if they return to the way things were. People lose lives, relationships are broken, oppressive power fights back. But it is in these eras that hope is most present. When power is still unbalanced, there is little hope in peace. Years ago, Gloria Steinem, anybody know that name? Part of the third wave feminism activist, spoke about the most dangerous time for a woman in an abusive marriage when she decides to leave. That's when violence escalates significantly. When she is most vulnerable to a fatal attack. This reality plays out so clearly in our world in big scale ways, doesn't it? As God tells us, these times will come with significant loss. They can be deadly times, but they are not to weigh our hearts down with ultimate despair. Amen? They are ripe with possibility. They are a result of people refusing to settle for things as they were. The kingdom is near. When our understanding of God and God drawing near is not distant from conflict, but found in the midst of it, what does that mean for us? How does the spirit of accountability in this text encourage us to act? What does the judgment of God mean for us today in the here and now? Amidst forces of evil attempting one last effort to keep justice from coming to fruition. How does this text cause us to respond to things like sexism or meeting asylum seekers at our borders? I believe that we cannot truly embrace Advent without embracing why it is we are in such need of God within us. This has always been true, though some may be feeling it more precisely, more concretely, and literally than years past, maybe. The truths that transcend, however, are why Advent always begins the Christian year with the end. Ending and beginning always going together, right? We cannot face any challenge before us by wishing away the end, though, right? What claims then can we make about God with us, about possibilities, about being present to God and one another in the here and now, accountable to our part, soaking up every bit of delight manifesting in the chaos, believing we can do beautiful and powerful things in the midst of destruction. Only once we set aside the fairy tale ending, right? I believe that our need to turn to courage sometimes is needed instead of hope. On this first Sunday of Advent, how might we respond to the call to courage in this opening text? As we lean into this season of waiting by rising up and raising our heads, if the promise of God is not preventing the end, what promise are made to us in this season? And will we have the courage to live them through the end? God is indeed at work, I believe, in ways we cannot know in full until you fill in the blank. I know there are periods in our lives where we have a sense of knowing something is drawing to an end before there are any explicit words or actions that confirm it. Anyone experience that? It may be a relationship with a significant other, slowly fading in its ability to carry love. It can be a life long lived but coming to a close. It can be a career or a particular job at a beloved place of work or many other forms of pending loss, yes? And often there are signs pointing towards the end that we rather not see, right? Just don't want to see it. I believe this text also invites an intimate and tender move into Advent with a focus on the way God draws near in times of loss, conflict, and transition. Encouraging us not to let our hearts be weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness. In other words, we are encouraged not to hide from the pain by avoiding the signs or numbing ourselves so as not to have to act. avoiding the inevitable as long as possible. Instead, God will be found in staying present to the pain, to the possibility on the other side, to the realities of what is. When faced with challenging realities, we can pretend not to see the signs, which invites us to periods of preparation. And I know many people are feeling this after the elections, right? We can numb ourselves to the pain, overwhelm ourselves with premature grief, or we can raise our heads, give the attention a situation or a relationship or a period of transition it deserves. And trust that we are held in the embrace of God through it and will be ushered into something new on the other side. Though this text is rather obviously about a collective reality, it's also true that our individuals' lives are always small embodiments of the larger world, a microcosm of the cosmic. We experience all kinds of apocalyptic realities in our own personal worlds, don't we? Always inseparable from our shared life together. Endings and beginnings in our individual lives are always a part of the story of the bigger cycles of shared life together. Amen. The floor is yours. There is a microphone.
It seems that we always